Heidi Kühn, World Food Laureate, distinguished academic, founder, campaigner. Thank you so much for joining us on ANewz.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I'd like to start by understanding why you are here and what you've been up to in Azerbaijan over the last few days.
Well, I'm so honored to be here at COP29, and the symbol here, the theme, is in solidarity for a green world. For the past 27 years, I've worked to turn mines to vines, replacing the scourge of landmines with vineyards and orchards worldwide. And yesterday, I walked the minefields of Karabakh, and politely speaking, there cannot be a green world where there's an estimated 1.5 million landmines in Azerbaijan today. And this is an opportunity because the world needs to open their eyes for the seeds of hatred and destruction caused by a landmine desecrates the one earth that we're given to shepherd. And we live in a world today with an estimated 110 million landmines in 60 countries. So I think if peace on earth is going to begin, and our commitment for creating solidarity for a green world, let's detonate all the landmines in Karabakh, and let's detonate the landmines of the world, for all land is holy.
And one of the things I know you're very passionate about is to move beyond recriminations and focus on solving the problem and areas that perhaps old enemies can find for common ground.
Absolutely, absolutely. I began Roots of Peace in September 1997, and it was shortly after Princess Diana died. And what she did is catapulted the issue of landmines to the forefront of the international agenda. I live and born and raised in San Rafael, California. We don't talk about landmines. We don't have them. We can hike the mountains, run the beaches. And when I learned of landmines, my two eldest sons were the same age as Wills and Harry. And I couldn't imagine a world where children kick a soccer ball out of bounds. Parents tell them, don't go past that red line. Nobody's looking. The 6-year-old picks up the ball. The mother in the kitchen hears a boom. And the hatred goes on forever, whether she's picking up the body of a lifeless child or without a limb for the rest of their lives. So it set me out on a quest. And I thought, to whom much has been given, much is expected. And I went up to the Napa Valley. I went to our vintners, Robert Mondavi, Mienko Grgic, Diane Disney Miller, Shirley Dean, and I told them that we have landmines in the world. They were shocked, really shocked, because it was the midst of the harvest. A few weeks later, the same people who were with me won the Nobel Peace Prize, Jody Williams and the ICBL. So I asked the vintners to join me to witness the signing of the Ottawa Treaty in Canada. They came, even though the United States did not sign the ban, they came as farmers respecting the plight of other farmers. So to answer your question, it doesn't matter who puts the landmines in the ground. It is the responsibility of taking them out so farmers have the dignity to farm their land. I began by raising the funds for Demining Croatia because the little Croatian who won the Paris tasting in 1976 was Mienko Grgic. He was born in Croatia, and when he learned in 1999 that there were landmines in his homeland, he said, Heidi, let's get on a plane. And I brought my 13-year-old daughter, Kylie, with me because I didn't want her growing up in a beautiful place like Marin as a teenager to not have the sense of understanding responsibility what other teenagers around the world have to suffer. And the three of us went there. Mike came back with tears in his eyes and engaged over 60 vintners in Napa to raise the funds to demine Croatia. We started in Dragalic, we went to Čestamale, Čestavelika, Bibinje, Baštica, and Vukovar. And today, I truly can say, I have seen a country where there were an estimated 1.2 million landmines become one of the top tourist destinations in the world. So if it's possible to turn mines to vines in Croatia, we have the possibility to do that right here in Azerbaijan. The best grapes in Karabakh served on the beautiful prominent tables of the former Soviet Union at the Kremlin. They came from Agdam, right here. If you ask anyone from the elders, the best wines came from this region. But I think Karabakh, as I was told, means black garden. It was named that for the beautiful purple grapes that populated Today it's a black garden with 1.5 million landmines. So I think it's our moral responsibility for those gathered here. Peace isn't cheap. It's going to take money to detonate all of these landmines. And I hope with the collective intelligence here, once the mines are out, the best practices for regenerative agriculture, food security, climate smart agriculture can be implemented. And this can be a model like Croatia to hold up to the world. Then we roll it out to countries like Ukraine, where, as you know, there's 30% of the land is mined today in a country that was once dubbed the breadbasket of Europe. So we have a job to do. I can go on and on with you about the countries, but I guess the flagship that I'm most proud of is shortly after 9/11 with the grapes, we transitioned to Afghanistan. We learned of Afghanistan, of course, because of the September 11th attacks. I learned it's a country that's 80% dependent upon agriculture for jobs, and 70 varietals of grapes are indigenous to Afghanistan, the Taifei, the Shindukani. So with the funding from a vintner who I never knew who her father was, she kept volunteering in the basement of my home where I started, Mrs. Miller, Diane Miller. One day she took me to lunch. She wrote a 6-figure check. And when you're in the basement of your home collecting pennies for peace, a $200,000 check, she said, go out and turn your minds to vines in Afghanistan. My dad had a vision. You remind me of him. And when I looked at it and looked at him, I said, Mrs. Miller, who was your father? And she politely said, I'm Diane Disney Miller. My father was Walt Disney. He knew a thing or two about vision. One day you'll be out of your basement and you too shall turn your minds to vines. She's since passed, but the Shamali Plains north of Kabul are due to her generosity. But what came afterwards, you cannot leave the land barren. You must plant peace through agriculture to give jobs, income, and education. And Roots of Peace has proudly planted 8 million fruit trees in Afghanistan. And even though the flag has changed, we continue our work there, managing $5 million from U.S. Department of State, INL, International Narcotics and Law Enforcement, partnering with UNDP and employing women right now in Afghanistan. These stories aren't told because journalists can't get there, but I'm just so proud of our Afghan women who are cultivating a harvest of hope, having the dignity to feed their children, whatever flag is flying.
And I'd really like to explore that a little with you, the very particular role that women can play in this work. I know that's something that's very important, isn't it, to this this whole initiative?
It's everything. It really is everything. I think, women, we bear the seeds of life, and it is our responsibility to protect the earth with the seeds that we are given. With sunlight, water, and a human hand, a seed will grow as it has for thousands of years. You plant an inert landmine, and it sows the seeds of hatred for generations to come. And it's our moral responsibility as women. I've talked to the women last month in Ukraine. We've trained 6 vintners from the Mykolaiv region. We flew from Ukraine to Napa Valley to Gurgit Hills to train them in regenerative agriculture. And those mothers were telling me, Heidi, our fathers, our brothers, our uncles, all the men are on the front line fighting. The fruit is ripe on the vine, and we are faced, it's hard to even say, with a tragic choice of seeing the juicy nectar of the grapes and knowing that it's possibly a minefield. We look at our children who are starving, there's no grocery stores, and we have to tiptoe through the minefields, hoping we don't blow up, or worse yet, lose a limb and somebody has to take care of us. Now, that's the reality on the ground. And as a woman, it's just so emotional for me to share these stories, but it's essential that we talk about this. This isn't just watching it on a feed on social media and see what happened in Ukraine or the Holy Land today. This is real people, empathy, humans that have to feed their children. So no politics for Roots of Peace. We're an interfaith organization. We respect the seeds we have in common rather than those which separate us. And I believe in my heart that we are all daughters and sons of Abraham, and we have to remember to get back to the garden. As we talked about earlier, the earth forgives us. How about that?
Yeah.
And when we take out all the landmines, let's begin it in the black garden and make it fruitful again. And I hope with my 4 children and 7 grandchildren that in a decade from now, or sooner with the proper funding, I can come back and picnic with those families who lost their homes and their vineyards and be human again.
The earth forgives us, such a powerful statement. I just want to go back to your work with those families you talked about. I think something that is always strikes me is that very often we can see tragedies portrayed on television, in the media, but also there are very practical difficulties that families have to deal with. If somebody is injured by a landmine, well, then there are also financial pressures as well. It isn't just the sheer horror of the injury in that moment.
No, it's a domino effect. It's a cascade of negativity and of tragedy. You know, and when people can't feed their children, or their children blow up or die in a minefield, or the only cow that you have blows up. Think about that. You have no more milk tomorrow to feed your children. You know, you get angry and you pick up whatever it takes to, and I think that really is, on an epidemic level, on a worldwide basis. But I think this is a time here at COP29 to really go back again to the seeds we have in common, rather than those which separate us, and turn swords into plowshares, spears into pruning hooks, so that nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. And that's Isaiah's prophecy, respected by Christian, Jews, Muslims alike, and it's actually a UN little tidbit here at the COP29. Kofi Annan and Mayor Bloomberg actually designated the wall across the street from UN headquarters with the Isaiah prophecy, and the earth, the ground, is the Roots of Peace Garden at Ralph Bunche Park. And with those words of swords to plowshares, former His Excellency Kofi Annan said, Mrs. Kühn, you are turning mines into vines and swords into plowshares. Now, it's taken 27 years, but maybe with a collective wisdom in this stadium, you know, of the World Bank, of corporations, and you know, all discussing critical issues and panel after panel, which I've been so honored to participate in. But let's put our words into action and be grateful for the people of Azerbaijan who so warmly welcomed us with their dance, their food, tours of the old city. But let's go out of the borders of Baku, and a 3-hour drive I took yesterday and a 3-hour drive back, just so that I could walk through the minefields on my 4th occasion with the authenticity of a mother. And as the years have gone on, I'm a grandmother, and my footsteps are limited. And my voice is here for a sense of purpose. I came here on behalf of the mothers around the world who have no voice. I cannot turn on my television and watch anymore what happened today. The mothers in Ukraine are suffering. The mothers of Russia are suffering when their bodies come back. When I speak of the Holy Land, I don't speak of Israel or Gaza or Palestine. These are mothers, and we're about to enter the season of peace on earth. Bethlehem is on fire as we go through the elevator doors and buy our Christmas gifts, singing "O Little Town of Bethlehem." How dare we not demine? Embedded deep, the landmines seep, the scourge of humankind. I think there could be another song that we really respectfully have the children of the world sing, and to wake us up from this sense of apathy and disconnection with our humanity. It's not just landmines as it was 27 years ago when Princess Diana died and kind of woke up the world, but this is the essence of climate change. And I think from my humble perspective, every landmine out, every fruit tree planted feeds future generations, and every tree planted sequesters the carbon that's going to restore the lungs of Mother Earth. So this is how to fight climate change. And I see this as a business model for peace, because we have a new president, and he's going to like business deals. So I see a few of them. We're in the backyard here and around the world, because it's real estate that we're holding hostage. And if we can work as a world, as an American, as a global citizen, let's take on a big real estate deal, and let's demine the world. I mean, there's enough money to fight. Why can't we demine the world? There's enough technology, employment. That's why I talked to the women deminers yesterday in Karabakh. These are jobs, and you ask them why they do it, and they blankly look at you like, Mrs. Kühn, if we don't do it, who will? And it silences me as an American. I think when I go back next week and go to the grocery store and prepare my Thanksgiving table with turkey and dressing and our tradition, how very, very grateful I am to have what I have, but the experience, the most really horrible experience of having walked the minefields of the world, but to do something about it. And I think it's right here, right now. I think COP29, the smartest, most brilliant people are here trying to solve the climate crisis, but you have to access the land. And it's my dear friend Mahmoud Mirzayev, president of International Eurasia Press Fund, who invited me here actually now 3 years ago, or actually it was 2 years ago. It was the first week, it was International Women's Day 2022. And 3 days earlier, Russia had invaded Ukraine. Who would have imagined 30% of the land is mine? But I think together we can tackle this problem. And I think peace begins at home. This is home to Azerbaijan. And again, no judgment who put the mines in. This is not a political statement whatsoever. Let's get them out. And I was a student, I think I told you, at UC Berkeley in the 1970s, peace and love. My generation was defined by the Vietnam War. And as we come upon the advent of the 50th anniversary of the end of the war, April 30th, 1975, when I was a junior in high school, 80% of the land in Quang Tri province remains riddled with landmines. Cam Lo, Dong Ha, Khe San, Hamburger Hill, these are names that not you but your father would know. And friends, and it's just unconscionable. But what Roots of Peace comes in, and we're not a demining company. I just want to really emphasize that. We're about training the farmers once the mines are out to go back and replant. So we've been in Vietnam for nearly 15 years, turning mines into black pepper vines. And we've trained hundreds of thousands of farmers in Quang Tri to grow the best black pepper in the world so that the land is hot with pepper, not landmines. And then furthermore, we're providing exports across the Pacific Ocean and selling that best black pepper in the world to Noble House Spice and to Morton & Bassett Spice Company. And our logo of the grapevine and Dove of Peace is on the back of every single bottle of black pepper, because the founder, he fought in the Vietnam War, and it was his way of healing not only the soil but the soul. The landmines he laid, forgiveness. A soldier does what a soldier has to do, but there's a sense of going back to the earth long after the guns of war of silence, and redemption of the earth and redemption of the human spirit. And I think soil and soul are off by a vowel, but we have to demine both. The hatred from the soil, but the hatred from our hearts right now. And actually from our minds, because you have to demine all three, and you can't leave it void. And whatever the politics in our mind, the faith in our heart, or the seeds in the ground, but you have to fill it with something we don't talk about much, and that's love. Love in our thoughts, love in our hearts. And to get on our knees and plant those seeds. You don't drop them from the air. You got to kneel down when you plant a tomato or pomegranate. But I think we have to ask the earth for forgiveness now. And she does forgive us, because I've stood in those former minefields and tasted the juicy nectar of the grapes in Shamali, thanks to Diane Disney Miller. And the $200 million that USAID, DOD, European Union, Asian Development Bank entrusted in a mother with just an idea, armed with an idea of turning mines into vines. So, peace is possible.
Mrs. Kühn, thank you for your example. Thank you for waking the world up to this once again. And thank you very much for joining us on ANewz.
Inshallah.
Thank you very much.